Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. So, my last upload, I talked about mental balance that you have to work to maintain, and you do. It does take work to maintain it through this gender war, and I made mention of it because uh, when you become red pill aware, it can become easy to actually start hating women you don't know, not because you just hate even innocent women, but because you could easily lose your ability to identify an innocent woman or to remember that a woman you don't know could be innocent. That's dangerous. Um, but by the same token, it's still militant. When you're in the West, most of us are, you have to remain militant. I'm not saying hateful, but you have to remain militant. And I say that because you're still in a place where it's militancy against you, and it never stops. So when I'm talking about being fair and not blaming the innocent, I was being sincere. That was no sarcasm. That's a valid moral principle across the board. But I want to point out to you as well that, and remind you, and hopefully you never forget this, but I wanted to point out to you that you're still in an environment where it's all militancy against you. It's militancy that you didn't provoke, but you still are expected to suffer as if you provoked it. See, how can you tell if a culture is innocent? Let's first look at that. Where you are, the culture itself is guilty. It's a cultural problem. It's en masse. It's all over the place. It's, as you understand, if you are chosen, if you are picked by a lady and she's nice to look at, she's under scrutiny and she's expected to sit up and have a justification for her sisterhood friends, the other chicken heads, for why she picked and validated you, especially most of you, because most of you will be normal men. And that's going to bother these ladies, because they understand that if you, a normal guy, has an option to still be with someone of your liking, not every man's liking, just yours. If you have the option to be with someone of your liking and have your children with her and raise your own kids with her, then their 304 plan dries up. Their 304 retirement plan dries up. They don't get to do dual mating. That undermines the dual mating strategy. They have to be in agreement to sideline normal men for the reserves, so that they can be dipped into later on as stepdads to raise other men's kids. That's really a lot of what it comes down to. You being good enough to do the work, but not being good enough to do the pumping. So it goes to that. It comes down to that. That's one of the main purposes, whether they're aware of this or not. So you're dealing with a culture that does this. It's an entire culture that's that way. It's not just this one or just that one. No, it's pretty much anyone that has any options in men that are going to be in on this. So while I'm talking about not blaming the innocent and blaming ladies for things that they didn't do, I still want you to remember that the reason I'm all about this militancy for you is because most of you are still in the West, and in the West, you're dealing with that. Now, when you get into traditional areas, you're going to have to judge the culture, because anybody who has been through the second immigration or passport control line, or even who has traveled domestically within the same country to a very culturally different part of the same nation, will tell you that all cultures aren't the same. So there will be cultures in which the women Um, there'll be cultures in which the women are not supposed to speak up, give their opinions to men, disagree with men, tell men something different. That's pretty rare, but there may be cultures like that. If there is a culture like that, then you could understand why the women are silent and not outspoken, and why they're not very forthcoming and open with what they know, what they see, what they observe. You can understand why they will be private. But if you take these men in those societies, you can't really blame them for what they don't know. But even in those societies, the ladies don't blame them for what they don't know. You live in a society where they are encouraged to speak up and say everything that comes to their mind, speak their mind. Hell, disagree with you even if they don't disagree, just to disagree with you. They're encouraged to do this, just to be a so-called challenge to you. But by the same token, while they're encouraged to do that, just for that purpose, when it comes down to what they want from you and how you can not be relegated to stepdad and 304 retirement pension, they clam up. If you were in a traditional environment and it is one that allows them to speak up, have their own opinions, give their opinions, uh, contribute, give input to important decisions that need to be made in mass and by a community, and this is okay where you are, then understand that for men to be confused or in the dark about women is not excusable, and it is not the men's fault. How are the men going to know if the ladies don't tell them? Those are the women whom you blame, even if they are traditional in their own environments. Those are the ladies whom you blame, rightly so, for what the men don't know. So some would say, well, I mean, so then why, if there's some traditional areas like this, then why this extra rancor for the westernesha, Jet Black? Well, glad you asked that. The reason for the extra rancor is because in the West, they're outspoken, they're encouraged to be outspoken, and then they become more outspoken than they're encouraged to be because they all want to be high-fived by other hyenas. And on top of that, they're still silent about what they want from you, and down to the point of being just deceptive and lying about what they want from you. And then on top of that, lying and deception, they turn around and blame you for what you don't know. I've seen that with a psychologist, Sadia, the psychologist, Sadia Khan. And Average Man Unplugged shouts out to him, also known as Unplugged Traveler on his other channel. Rome made mention of this, made mention of her. She tells certain men, and she even says, well, these ladies looking for this sort of thing, but when she finds that, she quickly becomes frustrated. She still has not come to the point where she says to the men, listen, this is how they are. This is not your fault. You don't owe anything for that. You're not to blame for what you don't know, because they're hiding this from you. They may be hiding this from themselves, or they may not be, but they're certainly hiding this from you. So how could you possibly know? So you know what? Don't go around beating yourself up, sir, for what you didn't know. When was she going to come and tell you this stuff? When was she going to spit it out, spill the beans, explain it to you so you could understand it easily and clearly? She was never going to. She never had such a plan. She wouldn't do something like that because that would be telling you too much. And then, I mean, she wants to limit the number of guys she could possibly like. That's what she wants to do, and that's what her friend wants to do, and that's what her enemy wants to do. That's what they're all in on, keeping you in the dark about how to even be the one they actually would like and respect. They may not respect you for not being that guy they respect, by definition, of course, but they still don't want you to know how to be the one they respect. They want you to more likely accidentally wind up being the one they disrespect. It's set up like this. The difficulty is built in. It's built into her. I wouldn't say it's built into her by God, but the culture is built into the culture she's going to follow. So in the West, you are intentionally deceived, systematically and collectively deceived, and then you were blamed for being deceived. They're looking at you and laughing at you for what you don't know, for not being able to read their mind. And you sit up jumping from pillar to post, jumping from foot to foot, trying to figure out how to be the guy that can read their mind so that you have a shot. Esther Vilar is the one that really opened my eyes up. Not really opening my eyes to what was going on, but Esther Vilar was the one that opened my eyes up to how known this is and how intentional it is within the last few days. I heard her name a long time ago. I didn't know what she wrote, what she said. And then what wound up being the case was that a few days ago, I actually saw some quotes from her book, The Manipulated Man. And she said the same thing I've been saying. She said decades ago in this book, what I've been saying for years, for less than a decade, for about 6 years now, I would say. But what she's pretty much telling us is this mass conspiracy in which the westerneshas are involved. And she doesn't necessarily specify Western women. She pretty much says, she just says women, but you know she's talking about Western women. You don't know how much she's including traditional women or not including them in this. You can't really tell. Well, this is important because that depends on which tradition. That's how you can tell which tradition is going to determine the extent to which a traditional woman is involved in the same games as Westernesha. But she rightly points out how some men carefully maneuver limousines. Other men get started with medium-priced cars an hour earlier than everybody else. And some get up at the crack of dawn and pack a lunchbox to catch public transportation to go to their jobs. And yet the funny thing is the ones who get exploited by the least attractive women are the ones in the last category who were the first ones to get up and take the longest to take public transportation to get to where they work. That's what she says. Points that out. So the harder you actually have to work in life, which means the less you're getting paid, the uglier the women are that are going to wind up running the exploitation on you because they're all going to run this exploitation. She pretty much says that it's all it's all a manipulation so that you'll take care of them. Her words, not mine. But where you live in the West, not only will they do this, but they come to the determination or to they come to a conclusion that you deserve that you deserve to be used this way, that you are worthless even because you could be used because you are deceived, because they deceived you, instead of saying, well, it's on me because I deceived you. And this is why it is that I talk about being fair and balanced, and then I turn around and I'm so militant against Westernesha. It is for the same reason. It's not inconsistency. Actually, it is very much so for the same reason that I turn around and I'm so militant against her. And I tell you, you must be militant against her as well. You must shut her out collectively. You have to do that not to avenge me, but you have to do that to protect yourself and to protect whatever resources you had to work hard to amass. You got to be this way with her because that's how they're going to be with you. They're looking at you and they are saying in no uncertain terms that if you have to work hard to get something and save, they want to come swoop in and get it from you. And not only do they want to do that, but the only investment they're willing to make into getting this return of stripping you of everything is some makeup and psychological games so that you'll think this is your job anyway. And when I told you all what the solution was, many would say, well, I'm not about to follow that Arab thing. Well, it's not for Arabs, but I'm going to tell you why it is. One of the reasons I've said that it is a solution even to this particular problem, and that is, simply put, we as men are responsible to take care of them financially, but we're not responsible to provide them with a particular lifestyle. We're not responsible for them being middle class and living a middle class, let alone upper class lifestyle. That's not a responsibility. It is that we take care of them within our means. If they bounce and they leave, they're not entitled to more. They get a dowry, but they're not entitled to more. Even the dowry is not something they sit back and ask for. It is what the man's supposed to offer, and she says yay or nay, and that's the end of it. So the solution is built in. Now, the way that people practice culturally is oftentimes due to both ignorance and greed and everything else. But the solution itself, the instructions are built in with the solution, or rather the solution is built into the instructions. And you don't regret this in the end and in the long run. But you are dealing with a situation in which you are fully expected, demanded even, to read minds or to just happen to be that dude so as to even be treated like she's straight. That westernesha, as much as I tell you to be fair, that westernesha fairly deserves your militancy and you shutting them out. The lockout game to which Lion of MGTOW oftentimes refers. GTN, give them nothing. Lockout game, if the host denies, the parasite dies. That's what you're looking at. That's what you're facing. You must be distant from them and shut them out and not give them any chances and any hope. You must do that. Because while they engage in this deception, they just keep moving the goalposts, changing things around. You can't win. And when you finally figure out, if enough of you manage to figure out what it is, they're going to turn around and change it even then. Guys to whom they don't do this, the guys whom they use just for breeding, who are the least insulted, but that's still an insult. Those guys just become a smaller and smaller percentage of the male population as time goes on. And they'll say biology and you can't negotiate this. And it's maybe true that you can't negotiate their attraction, but they do control it. And in the end, all they're really doing is creating a genetic bottleneck anyway. You leave it up to them, all the kids will be siblings. And who are the kids going to match up with? They're all siblings. That's how they do it. So being balanced means being militant against her in the West. And even in traditional societies in which they're encouraged to be outspoken and it's okay and it's fine and speak your mind and say this and say that. And if you see it, say it, call it the way it looks, and they're going to turn around and be silent when it comes down to what they actually want and what kind of man they're going to respect and what it would take for them to treat you with some sense of appreciation if y'all do form a couple. I hope that what I've said helps. Thank you for listening. And as always, black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual non-select male power because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction at Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.